Ladies and gentlemen, Andrew Durbidge, everyone tuning in, thank you so much for coming along tonight. Here we go. This is the virtual gathering. This is the September tasting we've all been waiting for. This is the big month-end tasting that we love to host for you all. Andrew, thank you so much for joining us tonight, of course, as always.
Oh, pleasure as always. Hey, look, if you've got the choice between an amazing event with Aussie Rules Football Grand Final or having whiskey and chocolate, what are you going to choose? It's not a hard decision.
Sports ball, whiskey. Sports ball.
Well, I know who you're referencing there.
No, you can choose one or the other. You can try and do both. There are some members tonight who said they're going to try and do both, and they're going to have one feed in each year. So if we're coming through your left feed or right feed in your head right now, welcome tonight. Yes, we did schedule this at the same time as the Aussie Rules Grand Final. That we're good like that. We're good like that. Really
Matt, be honest. You did move to Melbourne just so you got a public holiday yesterday, didn't you? That was,
and trust me, I called Susie and rubbed it in just a little bit. Don't worry. And I said, just take it really easy today. It's so good. Okay. Yeah.
No, it's funny. I'm a mad Aussie Rules fan, as is my family, and they're down the other end of the house right now. I can hear them shouting. So there's obviously some exciting stuff happening right now. So I'll be tuning in. I'll try and distract. I'll try and cut that out. But
well, we do need probably a live score going at some point as well. So here we go. Look, tonight we welcome back to the stream Krsna Rajalingam from Basik Chocolates. We're going to bring him into the stream just now and welcome him back, our mad chocolate scientist who's again worked on some incredible pairings. The feedback from members last time we did this in November last year was overwhelmingly incredible. And I think we've had a bit more time up our sleeves this time to really hone those pairings. So bring him into the stream now. Krsna, welcome to the gathering.
Adios. Hello, everyone. How's it going?
Good. How are you?
Good to see everyone. Yes, thank you. I may, just an FYI, I may just occasionally turn to see the chat to answer questions.
No, that's all right.
Just across the screen.
We're going to put the chat up on screen for people throwing questions in. And there's lots of comments coming in, of course. We won't be able to show all of them as we go. But and someone's saying no scores. Oh, okay. Well, we can always take live scores, but there's going to be lots of comments coming through YouTube, coming through our Facebook group, our Facebook page. You can watch this wherever. And just to soothe those who prefer to watch the grand final, you can watch this non-live as well.
I'm actually going to make a prediction right at the start. I think Glenn Farkless is going to win. That's just my thought on
it. Wow. Okay. Big calls. So I'm going to throw something and I thought
Why am I surprised?
Yeah. This is the global gathering. I just want to talk just for a second about what that means to us and what that means for you as well. It's all about coming together, and however we do that and wherever we do that. And in the case of a global pandemic, that may mean a virtual gathering like this one. The Lucky Ducks over in Adelaide and Perth had gathering events this month. But most other cities weren't able to for reasons that are pretty obvious at this point, unless you've been living under a rock. We did say in this issue, we will gather. However we do it, whether we do it online, whether we do it in person, we will gather. We'll find a way to come together as members and experience everything that society has to offer in that community of flavor-forward whiskey trailblazers. And that kicked off for us properly in 2019. We hosted, I think it was 7 events around the gathering, including the Vault 1682 tasting, including the gathering in Melbourne, including the gathering in Sydney, the gathering Brookladdy, the gathering Rum Night, the gathering Bricks Night, the gathering Adelaide Night. Lots of things going on that year, all across the country. 2020 was a bit harder with COVID, and this year is proving to be much the same. However, we'll continue doing our gathering and bring members together where we simultaneously come together, as we can see here, even in the Vaults, where they came together on the same night as us in 2019 to share a dram. In fact, they shared it with the founder himself, Pip Hills, in the background there, and enjoy all things that are good about whiskey. And this Basic with SMWS pairing is about that as well. It's about us coming together and enjoying great whiskey, great chocolate, and actually finding those amazing flavor pairings that make us sort of just absolutely joyous a moment when they come all together here. So we worked with Krsna again this year on the ultimate chocolate pairing, and we're going to lead through all 5 drams as we go along tonight with each of the 5 whiskeys. There's 2 of each chocolate. There's 30 mils of each whiskey. There's enough to share around with someone at home.
Share.
Yeah.
That's funny.
Or you can have it all yourself. That's of course fine as well. And we've packaged them up. Now, just on the point of packaging them up, we are aware that there are a small number, very, very small number of members for whom the chocolate pack has not quite arrived. We can thank our good friends over at Australia Post for their absolute incompetence.
Yes.
And so even everything was sent express post. So you may need to watch this stream a little bit later as well.
Can I very quickly add to that? There's one particular person who I feel the worst for, Mr. Paul Hamilton Brown. If you're watching this, I'm very, very sorry on behalf of Australia Post, because he was the unfortunate soul where his stuff got sent to Western Australia for whatever reason and got missorted. So I feel bad. So yeah, Paul, we'll see you in the future when you rewatch this.
No, that's all right. Look, there's members across the entire country, and of course, sometimes even Australia Post will take a little bit longer to get between places. But I've seen seriously 9, 10, 11-day working days between Melbourne and Sydney on Express at the moment. So there's huge delays across the system, and nothing we can do about that. We did send them all, but as Darren Howie said as well, Share, why do you think we grabbed 2? Yes, some of you did grab 2 of these packs. It was limit 2 per person, so that was fine. But let's. I think we should probably hack into it rather than just talk about it. Before we do, Krsna, you did a post. Now, do you want to?
I did.
You said
yes. So I just want to say, you guys all had a commendable effort with regards to this post of if someone guesses the right pairings to which chocolate, then I'd send you a free box, and I'm definitely going to honor that word. So the winner is Mr. Caleb Chan. He's the only person that got the order right. Everyone was super close. I kept seeing people doing, I think everyone's just gone, I think this will work, and then that will work. And in the end, we were really close for a few people. But Mr. Caleb Chan, that's the gentleman that won the free pack for the night. So
yeah, well done. We'll get that. Yeah, that's awesome. So shall we? 1.244 is where we're going to start tonight, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to start with our cask 1.244 raisin toast with butter to boast. Now, and you can see in the photograph there, that's the bonbon that it pairs with, which is,
that's correct.
Cheat here, is the vanilla bean and fermented blueberry. Now, before
you guys can see that.
Before we dig into that chocolate and work out that pairing, Distillery One is where it all began for us at the Society. And there's our illustrious founder, Pep Hills, holding bottle 1.1, which is where it all began. And yes, the photographer managed to eke a smile out of him, because that's the only photo ever taken of him actually smiling.
You don't get him smiling too often, do you?
No, you don't. And Distillery One, I couldn't possibly tell you the name of this distillery. Nothing about this photograph would give that away, and nothing about that photograph will give it away either. But Andrew, do you want to tell us a little bit about it?
Well, I'll tell you a bit about that photo because I took it. I've been to the distillery many times, and I've taken a bunch of society members to this distillery many times on our ultimate whiskey tours to Scotland that the Australian branch organised. And we've had some amazing experiences there. And when we turn up, they've had the Aussie flag flying for us, which has been fantastic. But this was a really special opportunity. Obviously, we had the gathering. It was a global thing for the society. All the branches around the world were doing this. And our friends in Scotland at the warehouse there, in a sense, they pre-selected a bunch of casks that they felt would be appropriate for the purpose of these gathering tastings. And they went to effectively the whiskey managers or the cellar masters of all the branches around the world and said, we've got, I think they chose 14 casks from memory, and they said, could you please nominate your top 5 for what you'd like to be featured in your country? And they said, we can't guarantee you'll get what you asked for, but nominate the cask that you think would go well in your branch, and we'll do our best. So I looked at this list, and I had to choose which was going to be the one for Australia. So obviously I put, for those of you watching, you don't get the joke here, but this is my favourite distillery. I have a very close affinity for it. And so I put number 1 as my first choice, and then as the second choice I put number 1, and then my third choice I put number 1. You get the idea. And then I actually got in touch with them. I said, look, there's a bit of a personal connection here. We would be tremendously grateful if the Australian branch were to get the cask from Distillery 1 for our gathering cask, and they very graciously agreed to do that. So hence the reason this is ours. It's an Australian exclusive, and it is a lovely drop. And by the way, if you do like this, you've probably read the details already. It's a 9-year-old from a first bourbon barrel. We have quite a few sister casks sister casks from a similar parcel making their way to Australia in some future shipments. So this particular cask, if you enjoy it, there's going to be some very, very similar casks from this distillery en route to us, which will be fantastic.
Awesome. Krsna, how should we taste then sip, or sip then taste? Lead us through this.
I'm pre-doing it so I can give you guys a live narration. So look, AD, this is going to be a tight race. So let's see. And we're only on number 1. But all right. So before we start, very quickly, I'm just looking at the screen over here. But there's a lot of hellos and everything. I just want to say very quickly, thank you to Matt and AD for letting me do this. SMWS, forever grateful, because there's a lot of you, especially from the last tasting, that have become, part of the Basik family as well. And so for that, I really can't thank you guys enough for your support and your generous comments. And everyone's always asking about feedback on flavors, providing feedback on flavors, or even asking questions about how some of this stuff comes through. And I will always be forever grateful. Please keep them coming. That's what I live for. Now, in terms of the chocolate, before we begin, I want to give a very special plug to the person that helped create this chocolate. You guys last year might have been familiar with the fermented plum that we did with one of the rums, I believe.
Yep.
And that was a coverture. This time around, I got the same person. His name's Teague Shepherd over here at Brisbane Pickle Co. An absolute master when it comes to pickling and fermentation. He's obsessed with Noma's guide for fermentation and pickling. So he's just done a standard lacto ferment. So by that being just salt and doing that with blueberries and tarragon, you won't really get much of the herbaceous note, even with the whiskey. And usually, most of the time when you do a pairing with whiskey, we get some really elevated notes, as we've experienced in the past. But I still feel the tarragon is almost muted and unnoticed. I think it's just the nature of the fact that the blueberries being fermented just gives such a more pronounced flavor that it's everything changes from that perspective. So you get a different result. The shell on the outside's a milk chocolate. The blueberry Gianduja is an almond base, so we're going to find some creaminess right about the halfway mark. And then the top is something that is really special, Tahitian A-grade vanilla beans into a gel. So the creme de la creme, that's what I would say it is. So let's
have a taste of the whiskey, then a taste of the chocolate, you reckon, perhaps?
Yeah, so the best way to do it is, I always tell everyone, so the best thing for you all to do, so I'll do a countdown to make it easy for you. So do like a little sip of your whiskey first, but don't think about notes, right? And don't worry about hunting for notes just yet. Have a nose, sure, but just take a little sip, let it go down your palate. And as soon as you're ready, I'm going to do a countdown in 3, 2, 1. I want you guys to bite half of that chocolate together, all right? Let it roll through, and the first thing you're going to get is that lemony element from the gel, that acidity that comes through. That's what's holding it. And then it gets really sweet, and then it just falls off. Now you get more acidity, but it's more like sour fruits. That's coming from the blueberry. Extra creamy right about now, and this is where you probably finish that half the chocolate. I'd finish the rest of what's in your glass with the rest of that chocolate and watch that evolution change. This is where that salt comes through on the back palate. You should get a lot of salt right about now. It should just make you water like crazy, but this is the best part. It gets extremely chocolatey at the same time, so you're kind of balancing between sweet and salt. But wait for it now, and this is where you get a Glenfarclas moment. with that global gathering cask of where you get this insane amount of vanilla bean and kind of almost light spices kind of frothing through, going back and forth in between just on the finish. It's got a lingering sensation with that, and the blueberries should come almost full circle towards the end. So you should get a lot of fruit. But yeah, it's good fun.
That works. That really works. There's that kind of like that slightly, I'd call it almost like effervescent fermentation note.
Yes, yes.
Bouncing against the spirit of that whiskey, because the sweetness of the vanilla as well, because I've said before, and Andrew said a number of times, it's that tasting a Distillery 1 from an ex-bourbon barrel is a rare treat from a distillery that prominently fills into ex-sherry. And so you can taste actually the sweetness of their spirit character coming through with that bonbon. Andrew,
blueberry crumble at Christmas time is a great idea. That's a great way of putting it.
Eden says, "Wow, that's amazing."
Thank you.
And Justin Farmer, good to see you, mate. Not a good idea to share the half structure with my wife, and now half of my half with the brother-in-law. And okay, he's an actual wizard. Yes, yep, I'll agree with that. And the saltiness comes rolling in. Amit, I'm so glad we got you back in time as well. That was hit and miss. That was a touch and go for a bit there. And Benson Lowe, good to see you as well. Andrew, what do you think?
He's still going.
He's stunned.
I'll tell you what was extraordinary for me. First of all, that was an unbelievable chocolate.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
And then I had the sip of Glenfarclas again, having had obviously quite a few sips before having the chocolate. And if ever there was a case of 1 + 1 = 3, the chocolate just took this dram and sent it off in such a different direction, but not just a different direction, an un-effing believably delicious direction.
No, I'm glad. Thank you, man. That's good.
That was just, man, having had the chocolate now, if you gave me this, and I'm pretty familiar with this distillery, I'd like to think I could pick up blind. It's not tasting like a Distillery 1 at all. It is, but what it is tasting is like one of the most amazing, delicious drams I've ever had. You've eked out goodness in the cask and in the spirit that I otherwise would not have known was there.
Mm.
No, that's awesome. Well, I have now a question for you. Seeming as you are the enthusiast, or even some people would say the doctor for whiskey when it comes to Distillery 1, especially. What do you think that you wouldn't get because of this pairing? Because you did say that it's still unlike what it is with the pairing. So I'm curious, what is that note that comes to mind, or what are some notes that come to mind that makes it unlike a Distillery 1? Sorry.
That's a great question. A slightly challenging one too. I suppose step one is most people would associate this distillery with sherry cask maturation. And certainly if you go to your local bottle shop and you get the commercial versions of this, they all have varying degrees of sherry cask influence. This is bourbon cask influence, and you're really only going to become familiar with this distillery's flavour profile from a bourbon cask through the society. And we've had quite a few of them of late.
Yeah, and well, we had one last time as well.
Indeed. And so the bourbon cask for me gives a really sweet maltiness. You actually taste the barley more than the wine than you would in a sherry cask.
Okay.
And for me, there's just a tiny hint of citrus normally, and then this real barley sugary note. Whereas once I had the chocolate, what suddenly started to emerge that I wouldn't normally get was a grassiness, a floral note, quite a herbaceous character, but it was never bitter.
There's no astringency, is what you're saying.
Indeed, and in fact, if you think about, sometimes we associate colours with flavours, and sometimes you can have those floral, grassy whiskies, and you get these green flavours. These your mind, the psyche goes into these colours that are green. Whereas for me, this sent me in an orange and a red direction of citrus and floral notes, and maybe even some tropical fruits. And as a kid, and perhaps many other viewers in Australia here, as a kid, like I grew up, if you had playing outside, you'd come indoors and your mum would make you a glass of Robinson's lemon barley water. And I got little hints.
Yeah, okay, right. Stuff like that. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, so but the complexity was extraordinary. And I'm probably boring viewers now by
I can tell you now the only the beauty about something like this, when you take them apart, it's actually some really, like, I think I explained this last year, I'm not sure if I remember, but for those that are wondering, so I shouldn't actually call this a Gianduja, it should be called a Duja. I know it sounds really technical, but I know you guys love technicalities. So, like, Gianduja is a very traditional Italian way for this sort of, like, it's almost like an after dinner mint, but there's no mint. Okay, so it's literally nut paste with chocolate. That's the most traditional sense. They don't do salt. They don't do all these other kind of weird things. They definitely won't be putting in dehydrated fermented blueberries with tarragon into a Gianduja, so to speak. But Gianduja means it's with hazelnuts. Anything else with any other nuts would equate to Duja. So in this particular case, it is a blueberry Duja. So D-U-J-A. And so the only reason why I feel what's coming through for you, AD, with regards to those florals, the grassiness, all of that, I find generally a lot of those flavors really comes through from fermented flavors. I think you get this undertone, and Matt pointed it out, like, right at the start. It's like it's got that kind of fermented funk, right? It's like it's subtle, it's not there, it doesn't lean into anything overly saturated, and I think that's also because you have the shell of this bonbon, which is just a milk chocolate that just kind of buffers everything out. And the base of that vanilla bean gel is still lemon. So we're playing on citrus, even though it's meant to be sweet. So I feel like most of the time when people are like, oh, why are you doing this in a particular way, or why are you doing that in a particular way? It's really hard to explain what sometimes happens up here. But when I had this dram, for me, it's it is, again, like, I was tapping into a little bit of nostalgia, so like James Caden mentioned, blueberry jam on Lupac butter and toast, that's fancy, so, that's like, I mean, it sounds simple, but I mean, those are kind of the flavors that we play on in terms of things that we're extremely familiar with. And that's really the goal here. I want to say to Sebastian and I can't remember his partner's name. They were the ones that came up with the name for this. Claire, yeah, you guys did a great job. Bang on name. Yeah. I really have to give my hats off to you both, because I was like, shit, why didn't I come up with that?
We'll take some more questions as we go along, but we should move on to number 2 as well. Because and if anyone wants to throw a live score update into the thread, that's perfectly fine. So we'll want to pour a dram now. I'm going to bring up the other screen again. Want to pour a dram now of 148.1, a para for everyone.
Oh, the moment.
We're here. So this is 148.1. I'll just talk about this as we're pouring that one out and having a bit of a chat. I know there's a lot of people anticipating sampling this. I've had it, both Andrew and I especially have had a chance to taste this cask a number of times over a number of months and weeks of in both evaluation, assessment, and enjoyment. And I showed some of these photos just the other night when talking with Matty Follant from Starwood. There's some great historical photographs that I've managed to uncover, and they're things like the very first site for the distillery in Essendon here, before anything's even gone in. This photograph is 2007, 2008, somewhere around there. And then sort of a look at where they are today with their whole new second level, and just the size and scale that they've taken it to, this distillery, and it's constantly growing, which is just great to see. And some of the process that we went through locally of picking out some of the casks. That's Carly and Jared there, and we're going through picking out some casks and tasting some things that they're working on for current or future SMWS releases and whatnot. And then working with that downstream team was all part of that process of picking out this cask for our members, as I've mentioned on the stream before. And then as I've also mentioned before, it's not real for me. You can see casks and barrel samples and spreadsheets all you like, but it's not real until you see it being bottled. And we didn't send the spirit overseas to be bottled and then hopefully get an allocation back here. This was bottled. This was distilled, matured, and bottled in Australia, and which, truth be told, was a fair logistical nightmare in itself. But seeing these labels come to life from the distilling team, from the bottling hall, seeing the deep, rich, and dried fruit caps being shrink wrapped onto the bottles, and seeing the labels being applied for us was what it's all about. And actually being able to share this with members. And I'm going to say it again, but we're trying to make this as fair and as equitable as possible for the spread of this next Friday on the 1st of October when this is released. All the whiskies we're tasting tonight are available on the website already now as of tonight's tasting, not this one. This is a nice little sort of October preview for us all to taste through and have a look at here. So pour that one into your glass.
There's a comment from Hems online, and I know it's very tongue-in-cheek and facetious, sort of saying picking a cask sounds like a hard job. It bloody is.
It bloody is. Yeah, you can go through so many casks to say, and yeah, I can see that comment. I'm going to throw it up there. Yes, picking a cask sounds like a hard job. It actually is, and Andrew and I know that very well. Of going through a warehouse and picking out casks and there's the two things you have to subtract straight away, and that's one, the romance of it, of the whole sort of, when you taste a whiskey at a distillery and a distiller or a blender is passing you a whiskey, and there's that magical moment where you taste it, and then you take that bottle home and you go, gee, that's a bit ordinary. I think I got wrapped up in the story of that one. And then there's the second aspect, which is pre-production samples do taste quite a bit different from bottled end result ones, and that's just the process of time and cask. Now, we did make one little error with this release, which I'll completely admit there was a fault there. But this is not a 6-year-old whiskey. It says it on the bottle as 6. It's actually a 7. It accidentally ticked over just a little bit longer in the cask than we thought. And then the team at the distillery said, this is a 7-year-old you're bottling it. It ticked over, and we said, well, I have a spindle of labels ready to go, and I'm not adding another 6 months to this. So let's go for it. So
the sad thing is they charge us for an 8-year-old. So anyway,
yeah, exactly.
Matt, every time you tell the story about the 6 months and the 7 years, I swear you've got to be half Indian somewhere to add on a couple of extra months, man. It's got to be that.
Well, I mean, if you do the maths, it was distilled 27th of November 2013. It was bottled in March 2021. So, like I said, it's seeing it come to fruition. Now, I will straight away say that this is by far one of the most, I've said it before, one of the most relaxed and stately expressions from this distillery I've ever tasted. And it's almost fair to say it's atypical of their house style, which is what the society...
And viewers, you should take that comment very seriously, because Mr. Bailey here is quite a fan of this distillery and has an unusual number of their products, and is very he is very familiar.
Much like your collection of Distillery 1, I presume, AD.
Quite possibly. But my point is, if I want to know something about an historical bottling from this distillery, I ring Mr. Bailey, not Mr. Vitale.
Mr. Vitale would have to actually answer his phone. There you go. So that would some great comments coming through. Each one put out will come with an SMWS Sharpie to scribble out the 6 and write 7. Yeah, you're welcome to do that to your own bottle.
We were tempted.
Yeah, it's tempting. But it's and great comments coming through. The nose on this is absolutely mint, and I agree. This is So and this has been paired up in this case. I think I brought up the image before with the next bonbon, which is the carrot cake, curvature, cherry blossom, and macadamia. So it's the white one.
A bit of a mouthful, I know.
Yeah, it's the white one with the red stripe through it for those playing along at home.
Yeah. So I want to give you guys a bit of background on this one, because there's quite a lot going on in this, right? So For those that aren't familiar, maybe didn't participate the last time, or you've never had any of the stuff that I've worked with. So just to give you an idea, all the chocolates that I use are of a couverture grade, right? So that's the highest grade you could possibly get. The reason why it's called couverture is because it's got no fats that are outside of cocoa butter. So they can only use either cocoa butter in terms of the fat element. And of course, if it's white chocolate, then it's only going to be, it's only going to be cocoa butter. If it's dark or milk, then of course it's cocoa solids or cocoa mass that would be involved in the creation of that. However, the word couverture, I'm butchering the hell out of this because there is a French pronunciation for it. Yes, and my mate who's helping me with our live stream today has spent a stint in France, who is giving me a rundown on how it should be pronounced on the side. But it's basically a refinement process of sugar, cocoa butter, and a dry mass. So in the case of white chocolate, it is cocoa butter, your milk powder or your milk fats, and in a dehydrated format as a dry mass. That would be the dry mass in there. And then, of course, you got sugar, and then they may have vanilla. And one of the rules for couverture is that they can only use natural vanilla. They can't use things like vanillin or flavorings or anything like that. And there's also, specific rules on how much they can use of something and so forth for it to be classified as such. However, couverture, when you guys are looking at those bonbons, they're all shiny and glossy. So the thing that you're trying to get that beautiful snap and that shine is actually through cocoa butter being crystallized. So the word that we use in the general terms is actually tempering. So when you think about tempering chocolate, it's not the cocoa mass or the sugar or any of those other elements. It's actually the cocoa butter that you're trying to temper. That's what crystallizes, and that's what gives it that formation to have a beautiful snap and shine. Now, in the beauty of this is actually my mum's carrot cake. I got her to bake this carrot cake specifically for this. We dehydrate the hell out of that. It takes nearly 2 days to dehydrate, and that becomes the dry mass. So that gets blitzed into like a powder form, and then that's been refined using stones that are usually used for making chocolate or praline paste. So if you've seen my Instagram feed or my Facebook, you would have seen these giant melange stones running through, and that refines down to about 20 microns, which is kind of like a semi-decent kind of chocolate. But like big chocolate companies that make chocolate from scratch spend a shit ton of money on these giant machines that are either stones or grinders or anything like that, and they're designed to get down to 40 microns. So that's how you get that smoothness and that softness. And so the reason why I'm obsessed with couverture is it's like a gateway. It's not a gateway. It's a highway, super highway for flavor, because you get the most direct ingredient, kind of linked up with fat, which is cocoa butter and sugar, and that's all front palate, right? But you can balance it in such a way that it's not overly sweet or overly sugary and kills your palate. So, I prefer using them as either shells. I'll weave them into something. Last year we did it, with the fermented plums for that vanilla custard, if you guys remember that. This time around, so the shell, if you turn the chocolate upside down and have a look, there's this kind of gold sort of beigey sort of color. That's the natural color. That's carrot cake. That's, of couverture, but it will feel like a snap of a chocolate. Which is really cool. So the top there is a cherry blossom gel. So if you are ever familiar with sakura flowers, quite native to Japan, but when used into things like meats and fruit, it's got this beautiful, like very known undertone of sort of cassia bark. So not cinnamon, where you've got that kind of sweeter sort of note. This has got a more of a kind of, I would say, a more sort of woody flavor. And we're definitely going to feel that with 148.1, which, by the way, I'm incredibly stoked about 148.1. I think that this has one of the best noses for an Australian whiskey that I've had to date. And of late, thanks to our local group, which Matt got to co-host for us last month at Supping Club, we've had a fair number of Australian whiskies in a recent time, and this brand speaks volumes, and it's an honor to do it with it. The base very quickly says spiced macadamia praline. So I'm going to get you guys to do the same thing. If you haven't already, take a quick sip of your drink and just let it run through. Don't think about notes. I'm going to give you guys a countdown in 3, 2, 1. Bite half of that bonbon. Hold it up, by the way, because that gel is going to go everywhere. This is my favorite part. In 3 and a 2 and a 1, cassia bark, woody undertones, cherry intense, and then flip. Now creamy, very nutty, but this is my favorite part, buttered popcorn, salted buttered popcorn. Wait for the switch. Now finish your chocolate and your drink. This is the best part. Because it's a spiced macadamia praline, this has got specular spice mix that I make myself. You're going to get an overload of this in the finish now. And wait for it. It's going to climb through now. It's going to get really creamy, very macadamia-like. And then in 3, 2, and a 1, carrot cake galore. This is going to send your brain into a spiral meltdown because you're trying to figure out how is this even physically possible that you're not eating a piece of cake, but you are tasting a piece of cake. Nostalgia is on an all-time high, and it just finishes off with that kind of sweeter, nutty kind of overall moment. And that's why this is still my favorite one to do the pairing with for the night. Like, I've got some awesome stuff for you guys tonight, but this was one of the best ones that I could have worked with. So thank you for the privilege.
That is unbelievable. That second round, that second half tasting of it on that sort of finish of it, if you like the finish, was unbelievable.
What got me is, like, I was nosing it, just smelling the bonbon before we started, and it smelled of carrot cake. That was interesting enough as it was.
Yeah.
And then your timing was immaculate. As you were talking us through what should start to appear, that's exactly how it was unfolding in my mouth at the time. It was extraordinary.
Yeah.
Heaps of butter.
Oh, that's great. Thank you.
Coming through. And how do I sign up to the cult of Krsna? You know what? There's some great questions coming through. Holy moly from Tim Grant and Absolute Magic from Eden. Yeah, there are some magic pairings in this.
Thank you.
And I didn't think we could top last year's one of this, but I think already in the first 2 we have. There's a great question which I'll field here from Hems that says, how far ahead do you plan these flavors, Krsna? I mean, you can answer it, but like must take a long time to put the components together. I can tell you right now, on my end, it was, I think the first email about this was like April. So like what are we now? September? So yeah, 5-6 months of sort of back and forth and working at like a lineup. On your end though. Yeah, so
like I have a rule. So like I know we were talking about this since April, but then we only really I only sit down and actually figure out flavors and pairings the moment I try the whiskey. That's my rule, because if I'm speculating, again, it's almost like when AD mentioned earlier about how it's non-distillery one because it's an ex-bourbon cask when it's a sherry house, right? And I don't want to lean into that because my knowledge on whiskey isn't there. However, my understanding of flavors has come. It's something that I'm very obsessed with. So it's something that I spend a lot of time trying to figure that out. And also, like in the world of chocolate, it's very interesting because a lot of people are like, surely you might be doing, you might be sitting down with different flavors and making different versions. I've only got one like holding cabinet and a wine fridge as my storage. I don't have the liberty, neither do I have the resources to actually sit down and work out 3 different pairings to come up with one flavor. So hence the reason why I say like my obsession actually boils down towards flavors. And I've always felt that chocolate is the most versatile ingredient. And that's actually the reason for the journey or the conception of Basic Chocolate. So for me, it's like I do it once and that's what I go with, is my gut instinct on what's supposed to work. So even when it comes to new flavors or new combinations, I choose to go down this route because it forces me to be, I wouldn't say right, but it forces me in the right direction. because there's no right pairing. We can do different flavors, but like in my eyes, or what goes on in my mind, is that it's got to be the best version of said pairing. And that's why I try and minimize time sitting down thinking about, oh, could this work and could that work? I'd rather just be like, okay, I know this is going to work, so I'm just going to go with it and do it that one time. Working with chocolate is not a cheap. It's one of those things where, like, resources are limited, and you don't want to be, and food wastage is a big thing that I sort of try and in my way combat, because it's something that's pretty big in hospitality, and of course with COVID. A lot of people are trying to figure out ways to think of it, but I've been doing it since the start of the journey, is trying to avoid that as an issue. And so, I try and focus predominantly on kind of just going straight for it, as opposed to dicking around to figure out, 3 different pairings or 2 different ones. I hate when people are like, give me an option for 2. And I'm like, shit, this actually makes my job harder, because I already know what's going to be the right pairing for the one. So, because then I know that it's, I know that it's going to be something, that works, so to speak. But whether or not it's well received is another thing. So thank you very much for the positive feedback. I appreciate it.
I think what you just shared with us was the fact that your instinct is right from square one, and that's why we know you've got big stones.
Jesus. Yeah, well, thanks. I appreciate
it. You might want to pour your next dram as we push along here a little bit. Before we go on to the next dram, I'm just going to make, it's a really good opportunity here to say, if you're not already a member of the society, or if you are, we're giving away these 3 dram packs. It's a 3 dram tasting kit. They're valued at $79. It includes a premium livery 26-year-old demolished distillery dram in the middle there, as well as a great 42, a peated 42 on the left, and a 9.196 on the right. We're giving away, every new member gets one automatically, and if you are already a member, refer a friend, and then you both get one as well. So there's still a few left of that pack, so not that many. They've been going pretty quickly. But if you want to refer someone to join, or if you're joining in with someone tonight and tasting society whiskey for the first time, there's never been a better time to join. And we're giving away these packs. Why not? So now we move on to G10.33 Cocoa Nut, and that's with.
I was going to say, just a comment from the seller there. There's a typo in your notes. If you've got the handout here, it says 10.30. It is actually 10.33.
That's right. There's
of course. G10.33.
10.33. That's right. Cocoa nut in the juicy oak and vanilla flavor profile of grain whiskey. There's not a whole lot to be said about Distillery G10. It's pretty much right in town in Glasgow. Just sits along the River Clyde. My favorite thing about this distillery, however, is its Google reviews. There's the distillery. That's probably the most attractive photo of that distillery. I mean, it's a nice looking day in Glasgow. But the best thing is the people complaining about the smell, saying that it's in the park today and they have to breathe the air that's horrible air. And how is this distillery still legal? But other reviews saying, I don't know, I just think it just smells like bread. So it's a big commercial distillery that has a bit of a strange reputation, but they are a crucial part of the blending process for a company called Pernod Ricard that use it in a lot of their blends. But this is a single cask of that distillery, and we're going to go dig straight into cocoa.
Matt, there's some real truth in that. When my wife and I went to Edinburgh in 2008, we were walking up the Royal Mile on a day where the wind was just blowing from a certain direction, and of course North British Distillery is in Edinburgh. And there was this smell wafting, and for us, it smelled like vomit. And as we walked up, we were looking around on the footpath trying to see who'd chucked in our vicinity. And it was this incredible aroma. And I asked people, and they said, "Oh, it's just the distillery." So when the people at Glasgow say that about Distillery G10, I fully get it. There's some truth. They're not being, facetious. It's what actually I think is very interesting about this distillery is that it was built initially as a gin distillery, or more accurately, to produce neutral grain spirit for gin production. That was in 1927, and I think it was in 1936 the company acquired a Scotch company and suddenly had to start making whiskey spirit as well in 1936. So it's had an interesting history. And these days is owned by ultimately the Shivers Group, which is ultimately Pernod Ricard. And so you can guarantee that a lot of this is going into the Shivers blends and Ballantines as well.
Right. That's cool.
And that's an unusually dark colour for a grain whiskey, but then again, it's also been put in a fairly interesting cask, so that would explain it too.
So again, your menu is a little bit out of is a little bit sort of incorrect there. It is a second fill HDMC. Is it the other one? Is it the other way around?
It's the other one, yeah. So it was in a bourbon barrel for 11 years, and then it spent its last 4 years in a first fill Pedro Jimenez hogshead. Right.
So it's a additional maturation as opposed to a finish, and 4 years in ex sherry for what I would say, and I've said it before, grain whiskey is criminally underrated, and ignore it at your peril. Water opens to tons of flavors on this one. Now, this goes with the slightly sort of reddish, blackish looking bonbon there, the cherry and coconut caramel. Krsna.
Yes. Okay. Sorry. Apologies. We were just sorting something technical out. I apologize, guys, for the distraction.
You're still coming live and clear, so you're all good.
Yeah. So this is it. The almost red eye hangover piece that we're looking at.
It looks like Pinkeye from the South Park episode.
That's yeah, that could be it too. So look, I mean, I wanted to play on the literal sense that I'm not. I want to preface this. I'm actually not a fan of grain whiskies. I've had some bad experiences with them. However, this one is incredible. The name Coconut was awesome. And when I received the samples, I don't know if I'm allowed to say this, but maybe I'll bleep myself. But I told Matt that it should be renamed to a beautiful Head F, because I really think that's my experience of this dram. And it's quite incredible because of that. Look, this one is, I'm not going to lie, this was literally, I wanted to take you guys down memory lane. Cherry ripe, that was the concept of this. However, there is no desiccated coconut. I'm saying this for a reason, because this is me doing the Head F with you guys. That's the fun bit. So let's do it. All right. So as always, if you haven't already, cleanse your palates, drink some water, do the thing. Now, when you're ready, that little sip, so I'll give everyone some time to take that little sip, of course, of that whiskey. All right. And then when you guys are ready, take that half bite in 3, 2, 1. Bite down. And this is my favorite part, dark chocolate. Sherry instantly ports you down to that moment. And then right now in 3, a 2, and a 1, you're going to get that beautiful moment of cherry ripe, baby. And that's from the tonka bean. And so now the spices kick through, finish your drink and the chocolate. And this is going to be the most magical, transformational part. We're going to change and elevate this moment where dark chocolate almost vanishes entirely. And now all you get, is just cherry front, coconut front, and it just keeps delivering. And it really does feel like you've had a cherry ripe out of the Cadbury Favourites box. That's literally all you feel. And the beauty
100%.
From the dram, if you guys nose your dram or your glass, you're tasting a lot of coconut, but you're probably going to be smelling the other elements of spice that are running through in that grain whiskey. That's the Head F that I leave you guys with for the, I'll just say it, head fuck for the night, right? Enjoy.
Quick.
You went one further. You went one further because what also that brought out is now the oak. There's tremendous oak on the nose that was not there before.
I said, sorry, I just saw a comment, Tim. I appreciate that. Yes, and hello to, by the way, just on a note, hello to Darren, hello to Lachlan. Appreciate everyone passing through some of their comments and their ideas and also their feedback. So I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
There's a comment from Lachlan asking about Pinkeye. Lachlan, you're the medical one, my friend. I'm not touching that. I'll let you.
Lachlan, of course.
That's extraordinary, mate. That's unbelievable. That's a winner on so many fronts. The bonbon was just extraordinary in its own right, and you've done another amazing transformation. A bit like yourself, I'm not against growing whiskies, but I often don't get. It takes a good one to get me excited. Put it that way. And this one actually had me excited from the start.
I definitely feel with you that it's hard to hate a whiskey unless it's really something clinically wrong. And that's very rare. So but I will admit though that it is very rare to get excited about a grain whiskey. We actually had, I think, grain whiskey not too long ago, not SMWS, but something else from another whiskey tasting, and I was kind of appalled by it. So but this one I really can't speak enough volumes about complexity, the depth, and you're right, that oakiness comes through on the nose at the end. And I think that's really quite special when you can get a food pairing as a whole to draw something out of your glass even further. I mean, that's what we all live for. So, I live for it anyway. So,
yeah, the one thing missing here is the soundtrack. And if we had some music playing right now, we would be playing "Cherry Pie" by Warrant. and I appreciate that. I appreciate that you need to be over the age of 40 to actually get that.
No, I was going to say you're clearly not showing your age there, AD.
Not at
You're
all.
showing your young self, and we're all appreciative.
I was going to say maybe
like your love for Distillery One.
champagne, coconut champagne could also be playing. That could work.
Yeah.
Yeah, unbelievable. And there's some people calling this as possibly the pairing of the night, which is a big call. 100% sherry right from Eden here. Darren Howe had a great comment here saying first pass we had faint traces of mint, but then it was waves of flavor. Holy shitballs! This is a great grain whiskey.
It is a great whiskey.
And yeah, this is my favorite chocolate so far. And Land Rover Bailey said this grain chocolate pairing is the winner of the night, calling it now. Good to see you, Land Rover. It's been too long.
You really have your share of fans, Matt. I love this. I'm not going to lie, SMWS members never change. Please never change. I live for this banter. It's too good.
And searching the roof of my mouth for the coconut bits. And I just feel like I've had a coconut without the bits stuck in my teeth. I know that feeling. There you go. Yeah. Oh, wow.
Thank you for the plug, Lachlan. I appreciate it.
Yeah, it's a pause point. If anyone hasn't check out Krishna's site and buy some of his monthly packs, very worth it. Yeah, incredible chocolates.
Don't say that.
Don't say that. We apologize for the plug. Yeah.
Yeah, and Land Rover is Matt's mechanic. Yep, and and you lost some respect there, Andrew. I don't know how, and sorry, Gerald. But there you go. So let's. I think we should probably also have a look at our next one. Pour your next dram as well. See what we're up to here. I'm gonna bring up our next. Past these. Here we go.
We're doing Herbs Ablaze, am I correct?
We are doing Herbs Ablaze. Now that's with the sort of the yellow bonbon with the black speckles, which is the beef fat caramel, roasted milk chocolate, and honey. Oofed. I'm looking forward to this one immensely. Now this is from Distillery 10. We couldn't possibly divulge the name of this distillery to you, so I'll let the slides do the talking. I don't know which distillery it is. Distillery 10.
How did you access my bloody photo folder?
Of the photo I took?
Yeah, I took that.
I took that.
That's my photo.
Oh, that is not your photo. I took that photo.
Bull crap.
I promise you. I took that photo. That's a 2019 photograph.
I feel like I'm the guy that's sitting in between the old married couple, just being like, "No, I took that one."
I'll tell you what, mate. Count on EOS at 40 paces. Bloody hell.
No, what are you talking about?
Oh dear.
You're a dear.
To be fair, it is in my contract to stir. I mean, it's my job.
That's true. And also, to be fair, I think just about everyone has taken that photograph. I mean, that's anyway.
Oh, it's all right.
Nope. No, we're still good.
We're good. I'm just you guys saw the little. Hang on, give us a sec. Alex is. I've sent Alex on glass duty because I accidentally took 4 glasses instead of 5, and I'm like, so that way I can pour the rum at the end.
Oh, we've got some camera issues, have we, or something?
No. Kind of. I'm balancing a tripod with one hand, hence the lean in. See, look, it's right. It's right there.
Okay. Well,
it just moved. It just nearly dropped. It's like God. Perfect. Thank you. Awesome. Now we're good.
It's in our peated profile. And it is, we do see some lovely unpeated and peated spirit from this distillery. I'm a huge fan of the unpeated whiskies, but I'm coming around to the peated 10s as well. And this is a 14-year-old. We've had a lot of like 9, 10, 11-year-old casks from this distillery. To see a 14-year-old is also very exciting. It takes a different sort of turn in profile. It becomes a little bit, the peat isn't as pronounced, but it picks up a little bit more complexity. And
we've also had, Matt, of late, a fair few from this distillery that have been in the oily and coastal flavor profile as well. So it's interesting. And we've had some of those occasionally thought, actually, how did that not get into the lightly peated profile? So it's interesting that some of their lightly peated stuff can really be split either way.
Yeah.
So with we also actually covered this distillery last year in our tasting, Smoky Harbour Fish Supper, right? That was one of my favorite drams of all time.
That's it.
Yeah. That was one of my favorite SMWS drams of all time. That
was a younger one from memory. That was like a 6-year-old or something, or 6 or 7-year-old.
Yeah, and it did not taste anything like a 6-year-old. It had hardly any crazy volatile moments, nothing around. But let's get into this one.
Tell us about it.
I asked Matt because I really wanted to make sure that no one is alienated from wanting to purchase one of these packs. And so today I introduced to you Beef Fat Caramel. I got an opportunity to work with this with a restaurant that I supply here locally. They're amazing people, and they are exclusive. They have exclusive access to a farm over here that's local in Queensland called Stockyards Beef. And I don't know if you've ever heard of it, but they have an incredible process to the way they do it. However, this is, of course, rendered fat that is, then, strained and cleaned. And so it's just literally, it's not lard because it is, beef fat itself is a hard fat. So there is a difference when using something like a softer fat to a hard fat when you're trying to incorporate it in chocolate. There are challenges. Even creating caramel with something like this requires challenges. There are challenges to creating this. I'll tell you what it really is, because when you have a hard fat, generally speaking, is that there is almost next to no moisture content. So there's no water content. So I don't know if you have ever dabbled in making a caramel in your house, and you're trying to figure it out how to create a caramel, with a bit of cream and butter, and of course, caramelizing your sugar. But one of the things that's really interesting is when you add a pure fat instead of butter, it doesn't actually work that way because you are missing a component of water that would usually be present in butter. So what will actually happen is your caramel will just split instantly. This genuinely took more than one time. It took 2.5 times to actually get this to work. and the result of it is an awesome flavor. And I think it works very well with the profile of Distillery 10, based on some of that experience from last time. So we're going to get into this, all right? So enough talking. This is a beef fat caramel with a beef fat honey ganache. Quick shout out to my honey boy over here, B1/3 Jack Stone. If you guys haven't, fiends for fresh honey in a sustainable way, have a look at B1/3 honey. I am going to give that man a plug because he does some amazing things. And so, as always, drink a sip of water, cleanse your palate if you haven't already done so, and then little sip of your drink. As we did before, I want you guys to just take a little sip and then take that half bite. This is my favorite part. In 3, 2, 1, take that half bite, and away we go. Straight off the bat, sweet, waxy, salt-like in nature, and then now that flip over starts to come through where we're battling between sweet, salt, and creaminess, and now the meatiness comes through. That rich, robust flavor. Now finish your chocolate with the rest of that dram, and this is where explosion and magic really kicks through, and this is where it's just going to keep driving on the front like you just had a steak wavered in front of you as you were sitting at a Rockpool Diner restaurant. It's just going to get more earthy and now switches down where the peat starts to elevate into a new height. And it's just going to keep building and building and building. And wait for it now, that flip undertone of where grassy notes and herbaceousness that comes through to the undertones of the dram itself. You're smelling that, but what you're tasting is something else. That salty and that sweet comes back together again in full circle. An awesome flavor blast, I could say, of epicness in terms of something that is very untraditional with what we're used to having. So yeah.
There was a moment in that experience, and it lasted for about 4 seconds, and it happened at almost the exact moment you mentioned Rockpool. And it was a 4-second moment where I was imagining myself chewing on a ribeye on the bone and chewing the bone.
Oh, yes, yes.
It was
That's exactly what I hope to get out of you guys.
Oh, mate, it was magic. And as a carnivore, that was particularly appealing.
Awesome. Glad to know.
Oh,
awesome.
That's unbelievable.
Good.
There was a great comment before about this is like a walking through the potting mix section at Bunnings. I love that as a tasting note. That is a certain smell.
It definitely has that kind of flavor. It definitely has that profile, right? Where
that earthy sort of
that earthiness
flavor.
Yeah.
That's something else. That's lovely. Gosh, that caramel tastes like a posh grilled steak with Danish caramelized potatoes. Wow. And Tim says, absolutely starting. Good to see you, Tim.
Thank you.
And Benson says
I just saw that
Whiskey Choc podcast. That could be a thing.
Well, hey, just so you know, without necessarily the whiskey pairing, the narrations. So if you go on the website every month that we do these tasting packs, there are narrations that go with it. So we shoot it here in this studio with the boy Alex, who's just sitting right in front of me, who is sipping on whiskey and having his mind go through the ringer, which is why if you're ever wondering why I'm laughing all of a sudden, it's because I'm watching his reaction unfold almost at a delayed pace that you guys and all of us are having at the same time. So
awesome. Well, shall we move on to the last one, because there's we've hit the fifth
the finale
now, and this is I'm going to bring up the photo for us all to see. This is R13.2. So not only did we sneak a grain whiskey into this, which is now available on the site for anyone who wants to grab a bottle of Cocoa Nut. That's a new release available from tonight with the pairings. We've also put R13.2 in the lineup. I spoke to Krsna about this, and I said I'd love to again see how one of your chocolates can pair with a rum. But in this case, not just any rum, probably one of the rarest rums the society's ever offered up. This is ready-made marmalade. Again, from a distillery that no longer exists. In fact, so much so that the best I've not been to Trinidad, but the best photograph I could find is that. So it's not really exactly a very attractive spot either.
I took that photo.
I knew you were going to say that. I was ready this time. It's not exactly the most attractive looking distilleries. It was 1923. It was founded, and it was completely gone by 2002. They stopped distilling a few years earlier than 2002, but the distillery was basically completely demolished by 2002. It wasn't then until Luca Gargano from Velier in 2004 sort of stumbled across it, and he found literally thousands of casks of rum maturing casks of rum in a warehouse that had sort of basically been abandoned. And there wasn't any sort of he didn't understand what the ownership was, and he sort of investigated it and then started bottling some of these Coronis. I have to say the name. And then it was a special moment because this is basically what we'd call naval rum. This is a dark, heavy naval style rum that was produced for the British Navy. The British Navy quite simply didn't drink enough of it, so it didn't hang around for much longer. And but this was, in my opinion, is an absolute whiskey drinker's rum. And you'll often hear whiskey drinkers talking about Coroni much in the same way they talk about they'll talk about Coroni much in the same way they'll talk about Springbank, or they'll talk about Port Ellen or something. It's they're sort of some of those holy grails of rums because it's carried this lineage through, and thanks to Velier, thanks to Luca Gargano, and the society worked with Luca, and we've picked up a couple of casks here and there over the years. The whole story of the Trinidadian rum scene, by the way, is absolutely fascinating. It mirrors that almost of the Campbelltown whiskey region in many ways. There was once 50 distilleries producing rum in Trinidad, and today there's one. And so it's one of those places, and this is one of the last ones that were sort of before that era. And when Luca found those casks, he found spirit maturing that was distilled as early as 1974. So very cool sort of backlog, if you like, of old rums. And I think this is a really interesting spirit. It's a demolished piece of rum history, and it's from a distillery that no longer exists, and it's a 22-year-old single cask at 62.1%.
Yeah. Well, Ready-Made Marmalade, I think, is a great name for this dram. I want to stress as well that this is, I think, the first time that I got to do something that's of such a high age with our SMWS journey. I must say I'm pretty blessed. So thank you so much for letting me work on something with such a unique history and such a unique experience. It's funny, I was actually talking to Tim about this distillery, and we were kind of a bit in sort of that sort of mysticized, like this was one of those mythic distilleries that we had to that we were really excited for. The premise on this one's a new combination that I've done just solely for today, and for this especially, of course. So it's a combination of things. So it's this particular piece that we can see here. Yep, excellent. I can see. Yep, cool. So this one is Sudachi with sort of gel with a. Why am I losing my my words?
Green
Sudachi
apple
lime with some green apples and also toasted buckwheat. So, yes, the buckwheat. So, Lachlan, you're probably familiar with this more than anyone because you've bought a fair number of Basik Chocolates tasting packs. We tried the buckwheat last year. So, I like using this ingredient. It's a toasted buckwheat. So, it's a soba char. Reason why I like using this is it draws out on the earthiness. And when Matt mentioned that this is one of those rums that is very whiskey-esque, in some way, I really felt like I was having just I think a more fruitier version of a whiskey. It almost had this wine meets whiskey moment, but then to me doesn't feel like a traditional rum. It's just got such unique depth and flavor. And so the buckwheat is just something that's a really long process that's sourced from Japan. And it's a specific farm that does this process. So it's like soba noodles. So it's soba cha. They break that down, and then they sort of break it up into different pieces. And then, of course, it's dehydrated and then rehydrated and dehydrated. So it becomes extremely compact and really crispy. And one of the reasons why I use it is actually because I get a lot of customers that will just come up to me and be like, hey, man, do you do something that's gluten-free? In truth, I'm a flavorophile, so I don't want to sound terrible, but I really don't give a fuck most of the time because I just like doing things that are just, you know what I mean? I do things that are just purely to get that expression or that moment. That's what I give a shit about. I mean, you know, if you've got intolerances, you know, I'm sorry, maybe Krsna is intolerant to the special people. Who knows? I have no idea. Maybe I am. Maybe this is a good place to have a public admission. Kidding. But ideally, look, I mean, this is just something with great flavor. And as you guys have actually had this before last year with the last distillery, which was Distillery 10. And it's got this beautiful way of synchronizing some combinations and notes, and that's why I'm obsessed with using it. So we're gonna get into this one. Yeah, I won't keep you guys waiting. So
this is not usual for a rum, by the way, folks. This rum is almost what you would call like an acquired taste rum. You get those sort of sweet rums out there, like the I'm not going to name brands, but like you get very sweet sort of white sugar kind of style rums. Then you get the sort of agricole style, like an R7, R6, R11 in our lingo. Those very sort of like spirit-driven sugar cane kind of style rums. But then navel rum is a whole different category. And when you get to taste things like a 22-year-old single cask, which is almost unheard of even in from their releases. Let's try doing this together. So we're going to have a taste.
Yeah. So take a little sip first. Just let it roll through on your palate. And then when you guys are ready, I'm going to do a 3, 2, 1, and we're going to have that half bite on the chocolate. So 3, 2, 1, bite half that chocolate. This is my favorite part because it resonates the name that we've hit for this ready-made marmalade straight away. Gel, very thick, luscious marmalade. Extra sweet, then becomes sour almost instantly. That sriracha and the green apples working together to create something really unique. And then it switches through, and now you get the creaminess from the almonds and that white chocolate on the outside. Finish your chocolate and your drink, and this is my favorite part. We're going to kick off this next bit where we get crunch, we get texture, we get salt, we get sweet. It pulls more fruit from the rum itself. I'm thinking of whiskey, but I mean rum. And now the bit where it comes towards the end, where the buckwheat just accelerates and just keeps giving you more crunch, more earthiness, more dark. It reaches out for more molasses. It reaches out for all these little things that kind of change, and it just keeps giving and giving and giving. You're getting stone fruits that have been kind of really ground down with dark sugars. It just becomes extremely moreish as well. And it gives you that kind of fruitcake-like moment just at the end. And the finish to me is still really earthy at the same time as well. It's got that rice bubble kind of feel and texture as well. Feel it's a good way to round off the night. Something fresh and clean.
But that's one of my favorite pairings of the night, actually, that one. Yeah.
Everything you said then was 100% correct. Even your timing, like you said, and now the almonds come in, and sure enough, I got almond and then almond meal. And then when you start talking about, the tropical fruits being dried, that came along at the same time as well. Like extraordinary. And then the buckwheat came through, and you're left with a sense of cereal, but a really sweet, satisfying cereal.
It's like, because it's cereal with like that sugary marmalade moment, right? It's like this cross points that are kicking through. It's definitely you're hitting it right on the nose there for sure.
Oh, Krishna, I'm in awe from tonight. I am in absolute awe of those pairings. That is.
No, I appreciate it. I'm glad.
That is something.
That was the plan all along. The plan all along was to make sure you guys got to graduate to the next stage of weird shit in the world of chocolate.
Yeah.
In the words of the A team, I'm glad when a plan comes together, because that
I didn't think we could top where we sort of left off in November. But that is that pairing, that especially that last one, that rum one, I think is equal first with that one and the possibly the G10 for me. I'd love to hear in the comments. I'd love to see in the comments wherever you're watching on YouTube, Facebook, or just what your favorite pairing was. Also, if you've taken a photo of your pairings tonight, if you've taken any photos from your home setup tonight during these drams, please post them in our Facebook group. We love that community. We love all the members coming together and sharing drams and sharing experiences. Before we call it a night, October Outturn is, of course, just around the corner. I think I'm going to throw that one up on the screen. I don't know which one you're laughing at.
I'm laughing at Daniel Martin's comment.
Yeah. the buying breakfast.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, look, it's not the first time someone's asked me to hey, can you, Krsna, is there any chance that if I shout you breakfast, then you can narrate my avo and toast in the morning? And but I was worried that he can't buy a house, so I'm not sure how I feel about the situation. But
that's been one of the most incredible evenings of flavor I've ever had, especially virtually. And I hope that we can do this. We can do this tasting in person as well, perhaps during next year or earlier, which would be amazing. Please pop your comments in of your favorite pairings and any photos you took tonight. Pop them in our Facebook group, the Scotch Malt Whiskey Society Australia group. As I was about to say, we have the October Outturn is just under a week away. That is next Friday, the 1st of October, where the 148.1 will go on sale. We have a small allocation set aside for some ballot as well, which will be drawn after the fact, but we'll have some available, of course, on the day. But there's lots of great whiskies in the Outturn, of course, including the Century Malt, the 72.100, the 100th cask of Distillery 72, which is very exciting, an ex-rum cask, that one alone. And it's only 140 in Outturn, I think. And lots going on in Outturn. A great read. It's on our website now. It's in your inbox if you're a member already. And I want to thank you, Krsna, one more time.
Thank you.
Our next virtual tasting, of course, is the single cask whiskey and cheese night. That's coming up on Friday, the 22nd of October. That's our next big virtual. And then that's our virtual gathering for September, sort of locked and loaded and done for the year. So I really want to thank you, Krsna, one more time, our mad chocolate scientists, for those incredible pairings. Like I honestly didn't think we could top last year's, but we really have.
No, thank you. Hey, and look, and thank you to you guys. You guys have let me be a part of the SMWS community, and it's a community that I really do enjoy. A lot of you guys have actually become, Basik Chocolates fans or family, I would say, by supporting the business as well. And I want to thank you guys all for your continued support. In terms of like being able to do this in person next year would be an absolute treat and a dream. I would kill to be able to do this in person with you guys. I think that would be awesome, because I miss that. And I know that with the current circumstances that we are here, I'm really hoping that next year we'll have the opportunity to do that. I think without a doubt, that's something I'm really stoked for. So I'd be keen to do that for sure.
Awesome.
Awesome. Yeah. But mate, for my part, I'm lost for superlatives. That was just extraordinary. You've outdone yourself. You've won a larger fan base tonight. Look, I don't know if you had a chance to see all the comments coming through, but
no, I've seen a fair number of them. So thank you very much.
There's a fair few people who are changing their denomination right now and changing their house of worship to the house of yourself. So. You've done well, mate. Just extraordinary, and I commend your skill and expertise of what you put together. Just mad stuff and superbly executed. Well done, well done to you.
No, thank you very much, guys.
Indeed.
Appreciate it, much appreciated.
Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in and being a part of tonight's virtual gathering. And of course, the grand final will continue. I think they're only up to probably second half now, but as though the first half's always boring anyway. It's all the actions in the second anyway. And we'll catch you all for the next big virtual tasting. Otherwise, we'll see you for some outturn previews, outturn preview videos coming into next week with live streams. I think on Monday and Tuesday and Thursday night ahead, and of course the full outturn preview on Thursday night with the team over at Whiskey and Helmet. As always, thank you everyone for tuning in. We'll see you all soon. Thank you, Andrew. Thank you, Krsna. Thank you everyone for tuning in.
Thank you. Oh, and very quick special mention to all those people that picked 148.1 with the carrot cake coverture. You're the heroes.
All right.
I'm not biased in any way, shape, or form. Awesome. Cheers.
All right. Thanks, guys.